Hi, everybody. Welcome to this first lesson on modern existentialism. The topic of this first lesson, as you can see on the screen, is the problem of existence. And I hope you're ready because I am. So let's start. Ernesto Sabato, Argentinian writer and philosopher Ernesto Sabato once wrote, and when we finally understand the difficult task of living, we already have to die. That's not very encouraging, is it? Boy, I remember when I read this statement for the first time in my life. I remember clearly, and I remember where I was and everything. I was in my late 20s, and I was going through a very, very difficult period in my life. I had got divorced recently, and I was depressed, obviously. And I remember there were things that I wanted to do, and I felt I couldn't. So I felt like my opportunities were very limited. In short, friends, life wasn't great, and I'm sure you know what I mean. And yet, I was excited about reading this book, the book where you find this quote. A book whose title is really appropriate because the title of the book is Before the End. And Sabato wrote Before the End when he was around 85 years old, so pretty near the end of his life. And I was excited about reading this book when it came out at the time because, number one, I had always been a big fan of Ernesto Sabato and his work. And for those of you who are not familiar, Sabato was an amazing intellectual and an accomplished novelist in Latin America. And again, I was a huge fan. And this book, I also knew before reading it that it was a memoir in which Sabato pretty much writes about his, concluding thoughts, reflections about his life journey and that sort of thing. So I knew that I would find a lot of wisdom in this book, right? And I was hopeful because I was I was hoping to find some information in the book, some wisdom again, right? That would help me navigate through this very difficult period, something that would help me make sense, right, of the place that I was in at the moment. And I came across this statement. And for the first time in my life, I remember that I thought very deeply about the problem of my existence and the problem of existence in general, because this is a general statement, right, for everybody. And okay, first of all, there's something quite factual about this statement, and that is that life is difficult. Okay, that's a no-brainer, right? Everybody knows life is not easy, and at times it can be quite difficult. But for the purpose of these lessons, friends, it's very important to spell out what that means exactly, life being difficult. So let's talk about pain. Pain is the first thing we learn about life. The very first lesson, if you think about it, when we are born or being born, it's a painful experience. It's quite the transition also because it's a transition from an environment of warmth and safety and security and care, which is our mother's womb, and we transition from this environment into one which is cold and we're violently pulled into, right? And so the natural thing to do is to cry, and that's how we enter the world, crying, because it's not a pleasant experience, right? So our very first encounter with reality, it's a painful one. Later, we become more familiar with the idea of pain, physical pain, that is. Let's say we're still very young and we're learning how to walk, and we trip, we fall, we bump our heads against the floor or something, and we cry in pain. Please allow me a sip of tea. And so I would say by the time we're 3, we're pretty well familiar with the idea of pain, right? Now, later in life, we experience a deeper form of pain, and I call this psychological pain or emotional pain. And I associate this pain with disappointment. Hear me out. Disappointment. Why? Because when we're young, when we're children, we have expectations about the world. There's things we want to do. There are experiences, adventures we want to have. We are in our little room and we look out the window. There's a whole world out there that we want to explore, and so we want to try things, and we want to climb on trees and doing all sorts of things. But oftentimes these expectations are not met. For example, let's say we are in a room playing by ourselves and we ask mom to play with us, but mom is busy. So she says, I'm sorry, honey, I'm really busy right now, maybe later. Or we ask dad, can we go to the playground? And that's tired from work. And he says, son, I'm so sorry, I'm really tired right now. I'll take you to the playground over the weekend. In the meantime, that's another no. Or let's say mom is making something yummy in the kitchen, and she's baking something. So we go up to her and we say, hey, mom, can I have a piece of cake? Already, right? With the expectation of, I'm going to have a piece of cake. And mom might say something like, honey, I'm so sorry. That's for Saturday. We're going to have your, visitors coming, and I'll give you a piece then. But that's another no. So you know what I'm saying. There's so many things we want to do, and it's painful, right? To realize or to receive these no's when what we want to do is just go out and have experiences and have fun. So our expectations again are not met, and that's painful, emotionally speaking. Now, when we start going to school, though, that's another transition, and very similar to the transition of being born, if you think about it, because for the second time, we're transitioning from an environment of love and care, which is our homes, into one in which we are surrounded by strangers and people who don't always have our best interest in mind, or at least, right, they're not as loving and caring as mom and dad. Then we meet a lot of friends who are not very friendly some at times, and we want to play, right, and we want to get to meet people, but many times, the friends that we're surrounded with, they don't want to play with us, and sometimes they can be pretty mean to us, and we don't understand why they have to be so mean. So we get home from school in tears maybe, and we ask mom, why do I have to go to school? There's so many mean kids there. And all we get from our parents is, a little encouragement. I mean, what else can they give us, right? They would, give us a tap in the back and say something like, it's true, son. There are mean people out there, but going to school is the right thing for you. And you just got to keep, moving on, and you're going to be fine, son. But we don't like it. And how often have you told your parents, I hate school? Right? I've been there. I'm sure you have too. Now, later in life, we experience an even deeper and much more serious form of pain. And this is the pain that we have to really pay attention to. I call this pain existential pain. And this occurs, friends, when we realize that oftentimes we don't meet people's expectations. And even we don't meet our own expectations about ourselves. For example, let's say we get home from school again, and this time we would bring a report card, and boy, our grades are not good. And so mom takes a look at the report card, and she doesn't look happy at all, right? And because she has expectations about us that we do well at school, that we turn in our homework in time, and we do what we're told and that sort of thing. And so She's not happy and she demands an answer, right? She asks, honey, why are you bringing these lousy grades home? And we don't know what to say. We feel inadequate, right? And we get the message very clearly that we're not meeting mom's expectations. We're not making mom happy. And so that's painful. Expectations about ourselves not met. Let's say we are in middle school and we are big football fans. We love football, right? And Saturday we watch, college football, and then Sunday NFL football, and we love the game. We know a thing or two about the history of the game and the players, and we, know some statistics and that sort of thing, and we even fantasize with being in the future the next big football star, right? And there's an opportunity at school to be part of the JV team. So there's tryouts, and boy, we get so excited about it, and we start forming the expectation of playing, being part of the team, and we think about, the plays we're gonna make, and the passes we're gonna throw, and how we're gonna run, whatever, and we're all so excited about the opportunity, and we go to the tryouts, and we don't make it to the team because we're not good enough. Now, that is a hard pill to swallow, friends. When you realize that you're not good enough at the game you love. And I'm sure many of you have been there. Now, let's say you're in high school, right? And there's a girl, a classmate you really, really like, and you want to ask her out, but you don't know how. And you get so stressed around her because, um, it's just you're just nervous, right? And you want to ask her out, you don't know how, and you're home and you practice some lines in front of the mirror, and every time at the moment of truth when you're in front of her, you don't know what to say, and what you say comes out so awkwardly, and at the end of the day you end up hating yourself because you're so stupid, right? You tell yourself, and you feel like a failure because you cannot even ask out the girl you like. Or if you're watching, if you're a woman, maybe you're familiar with this scenario. Let's say you're in high school and you have a big crush on this guy, but it seems like in this guy's world you don't even exist, and he seems to be interested in every girl in class except you. Now, how does that make you feel? You wonder if you're not pretty enough, or not hot enough, or not cool enough, or you think you're not good enough. Or let's say later in life, you're looking for a job and there's an opportunity to work for a company that you're really excited about, business or whatever, and once again you form the expectation of being part of the company, and you submit your job application and your application is not accepted because once again you don't meet the company's expectations. Now, why are these instances of existential pain, friends? Because in these moments, we ask ourselves the question, why am I here? What's the point of life? Is this life worth living? Those three questions, friends, they're so important because the quality of your life and your life itself, it's going to depend on how well and how satisfactorily you answer those three questions. The why am I here question, the what's the point of life question, and the is my life worth living question. And if you don't have good answers to these questions, or no answers, you're very, very likely to get depressed and even consider suicide as a reasonable alternative. This is not a crazy line of thoughts, friends. Albert Camus, French existential philosopher, he is famous for saying the exact same thing. That the most important question we can ask ourselves is the "Is my life worth living?" question. And he's also famous for considering suicide as, again, a reasonable alternative. Because after all, why putting up with something knowing we have the option to quit? Knowing we have the power of saying, no, I'm not gonna put up with this anymore. So this line of thought is not crazy. And I have the feeling that many of you watching, you've been in a very similar spot, maybe more than once. That was how I was feeling at the time I read this statement for the first time. So you can take Sabato's quote Sabato giving you, a tap in the back and saying something like, okay, I know your life sucks right now, but you're going to have it all figured out by the time you're 80 or 85. That's not very helpful, right? We feel that our life is overwhelmingly difficult and pointless, and we need answers now. We need solutions today. So what if I don't make it till I'm 80 or 70? Because life can be so, once again, just overwhelming that I might consider that suicide as an alternative. So what if I don't make it then? So what I learned about this statement, friends, after spending several days thinking about it, is that my conclusion is that yes, life is difficult, but what makes it difficult, it's a lack of information. It's because that's what wisdom is in the end, right? It's information, it's knowledge. So what makes life really difficult and overwhelming, it's not having the right knowledge that help us navigate through life. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of this three questions, having answers, good answers to the three questions I mentioned before. The why am I here question, what's the point of life question, and is my life worth living question. So according to Sabato in the quote, we are going to get this knowledge, we're going to get this wisdom by much, much, much later in life. But what's the point? Our life is going to be pretty much gone, right? By the time we're 70, 75, or 80. So there is an urge in obtaining this information. So the question I asked myself after reflecting on the statement was why it takes so long to get this information, to find the wisdom, to find the answers to the questions, right? To the three questions. Why do I have to wait so long? And why? I always tell my students that the why question is the philosophical question. The how question is the scientific question, but the why question, that is the philosophical question, friends. Because when you ask why, you're looking for answers, right? You're looking for solutions, for reasons that help you make sense of a problem. And in this case, the problem we have in our hands is the problem of our existence and the apparent pointlessness of it. So why it takes so long for us to get this knowledge? We're going to be asking these why questions a lot in these videos, in these lessons. And we're going to actually finish every video with a why question that we're going to answer in the next video. So that's the question we're going to answer in the next video, friends. Why it takes so long for us to get the right knowledge that help us navigate, to help us make sense of our existence. Why it takes so long and what's keeping us from obtaining this knowledge now. So for now, I'm going to say goodbye, and I'm hoping that you find this video interesting, to say the least. And I hope you continue joining me in this adventure of discovering what modern existentialism is and why, boy, it can really change your life for the better. Once again, the goal is that you discover that it, it, it it won't take 30, 40, 50 years, perhaps not even 10 years, for you to get the right knowledge, for you to get the right answers to the three questions. And you can find hope, and you can find a way out of depression maybe, and start living a great, meaningful life. That's the goal of these lectures. So for now, we're gonna finish with that why question that we're gonna answer in the next video. I hope you join me, and if you enjoy this first video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.